Я несколько раз проезжала мимо этого места, и мне, как человеку, ранее посещавшему только канонические, классические христианские соборы, не давал покоя этот оксиморон – сочетание радужного флага и христианской церкви. Хотя в этом нет ничего парадоксального, так как Бог принимает всех, и Иисус никого не отвергал. Сразу отмечу, что это не единственная церковь. В радиусе буквально нескольких сотен метров здесь располагается еще 4 или 5 церквей. То есть в Америке нет монополий, да, и, по сути, даже среди церквей есть конкуренция. В итоге, в одно из воскресений, когда здесь проходят службы, я просто взяла и зашла в нее. Придя сюда, меня встретили довольно милые люди. Они все разные, разного возраста, интересов, профессий. Но они очень располагали к себе и были расположены ко мне. Первый вопрос, который они задали: а что тебя занесло к нам в Иллинойс? И, в принципе, это был единственный вопрос. Больше никто не спрашивал меня о моем происхождении, религии, веровании. То есть я очень почувствовала себя здесь комфортно. Очень комфортно и органично. Церковь Америки не ограничивается только службами. По сути, это комьюнити, где люди встречаются по воскресеньям и общаются, а в данном случае высаживают семена для того, чтобы позднее из них выросла рассада, которая будет высажена в сад возле церкви, общедоступный. Служба в церкви, по сути, напоминает традиционные службы в христианских храмах. Да, то есть проповедь, есть молитва, где все вместе читают вслух тексты, там, Писания. Параллельно звучит музыка. Здесь она звучит современная, очень приятная лирическая музыка. Вообще служба оставляет ощущение, такое медитативное ощущение. То есть ты выходишь отсюда, я назвала это почему-то спа для мозга. Ты выходишь отсюда с такой чистой головой, очень вдохновленный. Да? Ты здесь отключаешься от этих повседневных, злободневных вопросов, думаешь о чем-то более, скажем так, глубоком. И, в общем, вдохновляешься на продолжение и своего дела, и новые шаги.
This is my body, which is broken for you. When you take of this, remember me. And in the same way, after supper, he took the cup from the table and he gave thanks. And he shared it with each of them, saying, "This is the cup of new life. As often as you drink of it, remember me."
Speak to us, God, in our hearts and all around. Tell us what can be, what can be.
Это пастор Сью, то есть пастор этой епархии, которой я пришла задать разные вопросы. Please tell us about your church, since we are Christians too, but most of us know very little about Protestantism and its denominations. So what is your key difference from other denominations?
For as our church, we are a denomination of United Church of Christ, which is a split from, well, not a split, but a merging of 4 different denominations from long ago. And we are we slant towards a congregationalist, meaning that it's the congregation who has more power than the authority of the pastor. It's like more of a collective decision-making movement. Yes, the pastor is the one who is ordained and permitted to provide communion and preach and teach and do the sacraments. We are ordained to do the sacraments. It has to be that way in our denomination, as it is in many denominations. But when it comes to decisions, it's not a top-down. It is everyone gets a voice. Everyone gets a vote, and everyone gets to speak what they feel. That's the legal part of our church. The religious or Christianity part of our church is that we believe that God is love, that's the overall message, and that our job is to reflect on Jesus's work and Jesus's ministry, and then emulate that and bring that to the time that we live in now. And so that's our focus, and to bring justice. We are very justice-oriented and peace-oriented church, and an opening and welcoming. That's not unusual to find, but sometimes it's hard to find a church that is loving to all people. And so that's our who we are as United Church of Christ, as a denomination. This is something that we all embrace, to be a justice and loving and kind and welcoming community.
The most common question now from people suffering because of the war, because of the crisis, where is God this time?
So the question is, where is God in all this? In the devastation in the world, in the pain of war and famine, and hate and division, where is God? My belief is that God is deeply in the midst of those things. He's deeply in the midst of our pain and our suffering. God is deeply in the midst of those wars. Not up here watching, but in the trenches of the babies crying, of the people crying, of the families being separated. God is, the Bible teaches us, is that God is among the people, the least of the people that are suffering. And why does God let this happen? That's an age-old question that's even in the Bible. Even Jesus, as he was getting ready to go to the cross, asked, "Where are you? Why do I have to suffer like this?" And that again tells us that God wasn't allowing suffering to happen, but God was in the suffering to comfort us, to be with us. Humans, my thought, it's humans who allow suffering, who perpetrate suffering, who have somehow distanced themselves from God. Because if you were actually connected in a deep level to God, how could you do any of these things to another human being? The question really is, why are people allowing this? That's the main question for all of us in these last 10 years. Why are we allowing it? God is in the midst of our suffering and our pain and our loss, and holding us. And for those who are not in the midst of that suffering, asking the questions of us, why are you allowing it? Do something. If it's nothing more than going out and loving people, opening a door for people. God is a loving God. God doesn't hate or punish or judge. Judge not, lest you be judged. God is love.
As I know, pastor wasn't your original profession, job. Yes, previously you were a military woman. Can you tell us about your path from militarism to church?
Yes. My path from being in the military, in the Army, United States Army for 14 years, and part of a air defense combat unit. I fought in Desert Storm and went to Saudi Arabia another 6 months afterwards. I did not expect to be called as a pastor. I was raised in the Southern Baptist Church in Mississippi, so I had a connection with God, but as a person, a queer person, I was always condemned. And so God was always a little bit separated from me because I thought the church's voice was God's voice. And so I joined the Army. I'm a third generation Army, and my grandfather was in World War II, and my dad was enlisted during Vietnam. And so we have a generation, and my nephew, it was in the Afghanistan war. So we have 4 generations of military in my family. When I exited the Army after 14 years, I was quite distraught, not sure what I was called to do, who I was, what I was going to do. And I luckily found a church in Illinois that was loving and open and embracing of all people, and I started attending that church and starting feeling God's love as they spoke about unconditional love. And as I continued to attend, I kept feeling this pull, like there's something more. And it was on a Good Friday, and I could not leave the church. After the service was over, I could not leave, and I went to the person who was the acting pastor at the time and said, something is going on. I'm being called to do something. And to be honest, to be very frank, I thought it was I had to give up being gay because that's what I had been taught. And that if God really wanted me to do more, then I'd have to sacrifice who I was. And of course, thank you, God. The person was like, no, you don't have to do that. And so I started wrestling with who God was in a new way versus who I was taught God was, the angry, judgmental, divided God. You're over here and you guys over here. And so I just felt called to the ministry. I didn't want to. You know, sometimes you just know that you're supposed to do something because you don't want to do it. And so that was my journey, is that surely God is not calling me. I don't have the gift of speaking. I don't have, I have an education from Mississippi, which is very low. Surely God is not calling me, and surely God called me. And so I have been here at this church. I've been in the ministry about 20 years, and I have been here called to this church for just now 12 years, going into my 13th year. I was ordained. I went to seminary at a progressive, justice-focused seminary in Chicago, at Chicago Theological Seminary, and I for 3 years, and I was ordained to come here. And so,
how did your family from Baptist church react?
Yes, my family. Well, in the Baptist denomination believes women are supposed to be seen and not heard. They can play the piano and sing beautiful music, but they really shouldn't be in the pulpit or leading worship, anything like that. And much like my family and my religion I was raised in, didn't care for me being gay or queer. They didn't think it was appropriate for me to be a pastor. They didn't stop loving me, but there was a gap. They didn't fully celebrate, and I don't think they still do. My father has passed away and my mother's still living. I don't feel they celebrate who I am and what I do, but they still love me. And So what I have discovered is that my reconciliation with what God is calling me, or God being in my life, or how I have a relationship with God, is really my job. And to whatever anybody else is thinking or spewing at me has nothing to do with me. It's what they need to wrestle with God about, not me. So I'm blessed with a good relationship with God, always working it, but you know, it is a sacrifice to be come from the history that I come from Mississippi, from the South, and the Baptist upbringing. There is some sacrifice of family, but I am so loved, and I know I am. So it's okay. It's their job, not mine, to wrestle with God.
No, why? But for Russian-speaking people, LGBTQ community is very important topic for discussion. I do not know why. And you know maybe that in Russia, LGBTQ community now is mistakenly called illegal criminal organization.
Really?
Criminal organization.
Oh,
it's
they criminalized
stupid.
it.
Yes, because it's not organization. Yes, it's just people.
Yes.
Criminalized. Yes, criminal organization like cartel.
Hmm.
Yes, I do not know why, because we have a lot of other issues more important, yes, for discussion, for example. But this topic is very, very interesting and important and discussable. After the elections here, I saw that this topic is also becomes interesting, yes, and
Heated.
yes. Why it is so? Why this community is so interesting for discussion and takes a lot of attention?
It's a very good question. And I can only speak from my thoughts. I don't have any research. I have not, I've only lived it. But in a very simple answer, it's easily to divide people. It's a way to divide people, divide communities. And one thing that I have noticed is if you can get somebody else to hate or other, meaning that you are them and I am we. So if I can get you on the other, you're an other, then I can't see your humanity. I can't. It allows me not to see that you are a child of God. It allows me to judge. It allows me to say you are them and I am, we, and we're not in the same. There's a movie called 1946. I have not seen it, but I've seen a lot of clips about it, that in it talks about why homosexuality became an issue in the Bible, when it was never in the Bible. The word homosexual was never in the Bible until 1946. I have seen interviews with people who have better knowledge of the history of this, who basically say that some religious leaders, and that now have become political leaders also, know the way that they can get a following or a group of people is to make them see another group as evil, a threat. And so when they can other a group, this group that they are wanting to do whatever they want them to do to support them, it becomes another way of just getting a mass of people following. It has nothing to do with queer people. In the baseline, it just has a lot to do with people weaponizing other people to gain power and control. And what I've also noticed throughout some of my limited time on earth is that the people who want the control and the power pick the most vulnerable people in the community to go after, to set everyone against. And it's quite opposite than what Jesus taught. The least of these, the last will be first and the first will be last. Jesus taught the least of these, the people on the margin, the people who are not allowed into the temple are the ones that we are supposed to care for and love for and be for. But power says, no, it's the ones who look like us, who engage in life like us, and whom we need to follow to suppress the other people. And so it has been the immigrant communities, not from the beginning, from when the Europeans landed on this country. It was the natives were the enemy because they wanted their land. They wanted to get rid of them. And so therefore, they started creating these stories about their savages and their this and their that, so that they can get the collective, the people who ran from that kind of life, to see them as the enemy, as a threat. It's the same thing with the Black community. They are a threat. So we need to suppress them. We need to make sure that our laws are where they are suppressed and not advanced. And here we are again with the queer community, the trans community, the LGBT. There's too many of them, and they're gaining some confidence. And so therefore, we can't have that because we don't know how to deal with it. So we're going to push them, and we're going to make laws to make sure that they are in their place. And they use the Bible, which breaks my heart always. Again, it's been used against me from when I was a child. They use the Bible as a means, because if you can get people to believe that God dislikes a group, then obviously it's okay for you to dislike a group, versus seeing God made that person just as well as God made me. They are beloved of God just as much as I am.
Our auditorium are people, Russian-speaking people from different countries. Yes, they live in different countries, as I know, and certainly they live in Ukraine and in Russia. Two opposite countries, yes, enemies. And I want to ask you to tell them something, how to overcome this hate, because the war is one day to finish, and we will need to continue living side by side. But how to overcome this hate? Yeah.
How to overcome hate when you have spent your life being taught to hate? It's not impossible. People have done it. There's a saying, and I'm not going to say it in the appropriate way, but the only way to eat an elephant is one bite at a time. Right? You can't just engulf it because an elephant is too big. The division and the propaganda of hate and us and them is so big that we just cannot engulf it and do one thing. We have to pick at it one thing at a time, one bite at a time. And eventually, it will change. It will reverse into love versus separation and hate. When children are born, they don't know hate. Mm-hmm. They don't know that they are different from anyone else. Mm-hmm. They are taught to hate or to see themselves different as in skin tones or places that you live or the language that you speak. Mm-hmm. They're not taught, some children, some are now, taught to be curious. I love your accent. Where are you from? Ooh, look at your skin. It's shiny, it's dark, it's beautiful. But so starting with children and babies, to teach them that everyone is a creation of God, equally loved and blessed, no matter what line where the line is and where they live, and the countries or the states or the communities. They are all beings of God. And again, going back to by one piece at a time, is to find something versus arguing about what you believe and I believe, what you believe and I believe, and who's right and who's wrong. Where's our common ground? Where's our common ground? We here are creating a community garden. We know that, and one thing that people from different walks of life, political views, all need food. And all the prices are expensive for all of us. So there's no discrimination about food prices and the need to have housing and safety and food. And so we're not going to say, you can't, if you're this, you can't have this food. It's only for these people or us inside this church. We find a commonality that is a need for somebody, and then we say, how can we help? Because we have a resource that you may need, let us help. And it's not in the political part that we come together. It's in the necessity of being human and our needs that we come together. We don't start with who's right and who's wrong. We start with, I have a need, can I help you? Or what's your favorite movie? We start with a favorite movie. Find a common ground and have conversation. What's your favorite sports team? What is your favorite star in the sky? Whatever it might be, what is your common ground? And let's talk about that, because once we find something common, we can see humanity in each other. And I think the church definitely has a responsibility. Right now, the church is leading the division, and many churches are leading the division and the hate and the brutality against humanity, because they're wanting power, or they're fearful of losing power. But when we realize in the kingdom of God, everybody is equal. There is no power dynamics. We have developed here at this church is we get a lot of hate. We are not hiding that we are a safe place for people. And it's not just, it's just for those people. It's for everyone who believes in the idea that God is love, and that God loves everyone, and that everyone has a place on earth. No one is illegal. No one is outside of humanity.